Well, want to say thank you all so much for being here today, especially our GAA members who make this possible. We're very excited about the panel that we have today and to talk about maintaining visibility while working remotely. I know, as I mentioned up top, this is all something many of us are dealing with, whether we'd like to or not at this point, but definitely something we could all work on as we establish this new normal. Want to remind people that for GAA members, we are having a networking session with our panelists immediately after this call. You can still register for that. There's still plenty of time. You can register anytime up until noon. Just check your email that you found that you used to get into this call, and there will be a link to register there. And when you register, you'll get another email with a different Zoom link. That will be a Zoom meeting. With that, I'm going to pass it over to our fantastic moderator and career coach, Catherine Tuttle, to get started.
All right, thanks, Jack, and thank you all for being here. We're excited to delve into this topic. It's something that obviously is top of mind, and I will start out by giving just some overview kind of tips that you can keep in mind and start the discussion, and then I'll hand it off to my panelists. But first, I did want to let them introduce themselves quickly to everyone on the call. If you could give us obviously your graduation year, and then a little bit of an overview in terms of your role and how that shifted since March. So we'll start with Allison.
I'm Alison Bailey, and I graduated from Carolina in 2003. And I work in Raleigh, North Carolina for the North Carolina Board of Nursing, which is a quasi-government agency that licenses nurses here in the state of North Carolina. And then we regulate their practice on the back end. And my role at the board is as the manager of the regulatory compliance department. So when a nurse goes through an investigative process with the board and agrees to a consent order with the board, my department tracks their compliance with the conditions of the consent order. And so I have 4 or 5 staff underneath me, and I report directly to our chief legal officer at the board. And as far as our transition, we were a 100% in the building office. And on March 13th, 17th, whatever the date was, it was a definite push to get everybody a laptop, to get everybody engaged with the tools that we did already have in place that we weren't using because we were in the building. We're Microsoft heavy, so we use Teams as our major communication platform between all of our departments or intra-departmentally. And so getting people up to speed on the technology that we did have in place but they hadn't been forced to use was definitely a big learning curve for the first 2 or 3 months of this. Also, we have smartphones, so all of our calls do go to our computers, but we'd always been in the office, so we never actually had to use them. So navigating that are the big things that come to mind as I reflect back on our transition from 100% in the office to 100% at home right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Allison. And Norledia, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Norledia Moody. I was a 2004 graduate of UNC and also a 2004 Teach for America Corps member in Atlanta. I work out of a home office in Atlanta. However, I represent Carolina very well with my blue walls and all my Carolina signage behind me. I work full-time for Teach for America. I oversee our work specifically for Teach for America alumni who identify as Native, Indigenous, and people of color. We have an alumni association called The Collective, and so I oversee all of that work for our alumni base. Interestingly enough, I have been working from home ever since stepping into this role in late 2018. My team is a national team, and so I actually manage people who live in a couple of different cities across the United States. The biggest difference in my work when the pandemic happened is that we host a ton of in-person programming for Teach for America Corps members and alumni of color. And so we had to cancel a lot of our programming. And now we are being really innovative and thinking a ton about how do we take what has traditionally been in-person experiences and turn them into thoughtful, engaging, and impactful virtual touch points for folks over the next year. So that's a little bit about me. I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Thank you so much. And that's such a great point too, that while this may be challenging for some, especially in the beginning, as Alison said, there is a lot of opportunity as well that comes with this transition. And so we'll be talking about that as we go along. Rick, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. Rick Davis. As you can see, I graduated from the Keenan Flagler Business School in '85. It was not known as Keenan Flagler at that time, but it is now. I had the great honor of serving at the General Alumni Association for close to maybe over 20 years. So Northeastern, but I moved into this role 5 years ago. Northeastern University is a private institution which has its main hub in Boston, but it actually has 11 campus units located across North America as well as in London. And I have 40 staff that I look at myself as at the center of a circle and that sort of navigating around that staff. There are a majority of that staff are located in the Boston metro area. But as you asked, Catherine, about how, I think your question was how our role shifted. One unique thing that we had going on for us here is that we long embraced a couple of years ago that being in the relationship business, we weren't going to form relationships just being in the office. And so we shifted from a very office-dependent culture to really more ensuring that the staff across department lines were out in the regions that were actually there. And so as a result, we needed to have technology, which at the time was Microsoft Teams, and that we need to have technology. So there was a less focus as to who was in the office at any given point, as opposed to where are you, how can I find you, and how can you get into this meeting? So we had a technology infrastructure in place. That being said, to bring balance to that, when this happened in March, a couple of transitions happened for us that were challenging. One, Microsoft Teams didn't seem to cut it anymore. It just, I don't know. And you all who are more technically competent will tell me somehow there's a relationship between Zoom and Teams. So anyhow, there was a little bit of a move over to Zoom and having to do that. And then also there are, of the 40 staff, there are some key positions that are the functions are very dependent upon working in the office in the Boston campus. And so those particular positions that adjustment was really challenging. My final point is you asked about how my personal role shifted. I, since March, have been put on a zillion task forces, a ton of committees, reimagining the university, rethinking, what are we going to do if we close down? Our president is very good at making sure that we do contingency planning. And so I have now, you can look at my title, you can look at my duties, but I'm leading no less than 7 different committees on a variety of topics as we think about ahead and what we will do. And so I'm in this hybrid kind of role that's more pan-university. And then for those of you who work in companies that would say more pan-corporate, I've sort of been pulled into that capacity. Mm-hmm. I lived in Morrison, by the way. I don't know if there are any Morrison folks, so let me know. We're sharing the love.
Thank you, Rick. I think that's, it's an important point that we don't know how long this is going to last, right?
That's
right. So we can plan and there are definitely a lot of committees opening up inside higher ed and outside higher ed, in corporate, trying to figure that out. And, while this is, this switch to virtual was rushed in March based on coronavirus, this is a trend that has been moving in that direction for quite some time, right? And I was looking at some statistics. There's an organization called Upwork, and their job is to connect business people who are working, remotely. And they have done surveys of organizations that predict that by 2028, almost 75% of the workforce is going to be remote. And so whether this is a short term or a longer term span right now, there's a good chance that at some point in your career you will be working remotely. And so this is an important topic in terms of how do you maintain that visibility, how do you build relationships, how do you manage your time in this new setting when you're not sitting in a building with your colleagues every day. So a couple things, I'm just going to raise a few kind of points to kick things off and maybe start to touch on some of the questions that came in before. One thing, the first point is, wanting to keep in mind that we need to still show face every once in a while, right? So I know at this point, a lot of us have Zoom fatigue. We're over it, right? In the beginning, it was Zoom happy hours, Zoom lunch, Zoom dinner, all that stuff, Zoom meetings all day. And that was great because we missed the fact that we weren't with people outside of our home. I get that that's draining, but for important calls and in general, at least a few times a week, you need to be turning your camera on and engaging face to face. It's the closest we're going to get to those in-person collaboration sessions. And with the screen share and the chat and all these things, it can be as collaborative as it was in the office. So really trying to get on, engage, and also experiences nonverbals that are such a huge part of our communication. The second thing I would say is, if you had standing lunches or standing coffee dates, take those virtual. Just instead of erasing them off the calendar, take it online. That can be, there's so many options now. I mean, Google Meet, Google Hangout, Zoom, Teams, all this stuff. That can be social, just as a way to connect, or it can be a way to build your visibility. I have a client currently who works at JP Morgan, and she actually launched a wellness group for her team, right? So she noticed that people were, being lethargic, maybe not getting out as much, just energy was draining as they were inside longer and longer. So she launched this initiative with her team that ended up expanding within the organization. And then she also launched, kind of realizing that a lot of the clients that they had were still struggling, some of the smaller businesses. She actually launched a collaborative call with clients monthly for them to get together and talk and share best practices. And now it's become so popular that, executives are jumping on the call. And so that's greatly expanded her visibility and shown that she can take initiative and be innovative during this time. And finally, I would say that we want to speak up. We want to take those high visibility projects that get us in front of people that we wouldn't normally be in front of, right? So as Norledia mentioned, this is a time to be innovative. And as Rick said, there's committees and there's people that are trying to figure out this short and long-term plan. Volunteer for those, right? Volunteer for those, get in front of people, and really take initiative to build your brand within the organization. You do not have to be in a building to build your brand. So that is my quick 2 cents on things to keep in mind. And we've got some great questions that were submitted, and it looks like a few came in. I'm going to pull that up from the group. So first question, and I think any of you could take this. I'll start with Norledia. How do you position yourself to get promoted when you are working from home?
Well, that's an interesting and exciting question, considering that I just got promoted on my job. I just received a promotion 3 weeks ago. So very timely. Thank you. So as I shared, I had been working virtually for the last couple of years. And so I just truly ground myself in my work ethic. And I just really work hard. Whatever it is that I'm responsible for, I make sure I do it at the highest possible level. But as Catherine and Rick were saying, all these opportunities to join other committees and task force and groups like that allow you to also shine. And it was just an opportunity for me to get outside of my day-to-day world and my day-to-day work and actually get my hands on and have a voice in some of the things that were broadly impacting our organization. And so, you know, thriving in my role on a day-to-day basis while literally lending a hand and lending a voice and bringing a voice to the table to represent my body of work, my constituents, and my work and my team, I think actually led to me being in a place where I was able to get promoted. And I would just encourage folks out there to just really do the same, really look for those stretch opportunities and those opportunities to grow and enhance the skill set that you have or grow a new skill set. I think that really helps you to get the attention of others who are in positions of power and have influence over those who get promoted.
Thank you so much. And congratulations again. That's so exciting. Yeah,
Thanks.
it's great. I think that is fantastic advice. Get in front of people, take initiative, work hard and stretch yourself, right? I think that's incredibly important. Rick or Allison, anything to add?
I do. So I'll try to build, as opposed to so that we can hopefully provide value, I'll try to say something different. Although everything Norledia said, I would just sort of be spot on. But so in the spirit of offering something a little different in this regard, I think you first have to define for you and the company you're currently working for what promotion means. Because I know that many times your sense of promotion could be a title, it could be dollars, and I don't wish to put judgment on that, but so I would offer that in the past 2 or 3 months, I've been promoted. I've been promoted to ask to co-chair certain critical pieces of the organization. And for me professionally, I consider that a promotion. Now, if you are listening to this and that's not where you are, if you're looking at, I want to be a senior director, I want this job, et cetera, then just know that, but make sure that's in alignment with your company as well. So in other words, is your company looking at it that way as well? So in the Boston environment, where there's 73 colleges and universities, the concept of promotion is actually pretty black and white. Most staff come and, you know, they look at they're either promoted in 3 years or they move on to another college. So we kind of know that's kind of our culture, but I'd say you're a bit out of sync if you start focusing on the promotion word, if you're not really making sure you understand the culture with which you're working, because there's a lot of other cultures that could look at really valuing you and promoting you, and it may not be a title, not dollars. The other thing I'll mention is in the whole spirit of being promoted, whether it's metaphorical, lyrical, or literal, is just make sure you know the difference between doing a great job and a good job. And make sure that you're in sync with your boss in terms of knowing that. And I think it's not threatening. I advise all of you to have that kind of dialogue with your boss. I don't think she or he would get defensive about that. Do you see me doing a good job and a great job? Because the reality is, from my view, this is my personal view, is there's a lot of people doing a good job. But those people who are doing a great job, no matter whether they're on the phone, on Slack, in Zoom, or whatever, if you're doing a great job and I'm perceiving that as a great job as your boss, you're going to get promoted, either literal, figural, whatever you want to call it. But if you're doing a great job, if you're doing a good job, the people who are doing great are going to pass you. And that's the other thing I'd mentioned. Don't lose sight that when it comes to promotions in general, it is competitive. And so companies are going to have so many positions, so many limited resources. And so the people that are doing a great job and versus a good job are the ones that are going to really feed into that.
That's a great point. And I think just to reiterate, being clear and upfront with your boss, right? Letting them know what your goals are within the organization and creating a plan to get you there, asking for those stretch projects, asking for exposure to different areas. I think if you have that kind of relationship with your boss, hopefully they will be on board with that, right? And then once you get those stretch assignments and once you get to gain that exposure across the organization, as Rick said, do a great job and put yourself, fully into that project. I'm going to move on to another question. And of course, if there was anything we didn't touch on, feel free to chat in a question. Allison, I'll give this one to you. This person asked about tips for managing and participating in important projects when you're working from home. Love for you to share any thoughts there.
So for me, I know coming from being in the office and having my FaceTime and knowing what special projects I had on my radar and having a file cabinet where they were all there and I could pull the file, meet with my people, that was a big challenge. So I had to create a spreadsheet where I kind of reconcile in real time what my strategic plan is for whatever issue, where things are in motion and all the parties that are involved. And that's been really helpful for me because as I make updates, something can sit for 2 or 3 weeks before any movement happens on it. So for me, I had to create a new system that lives virtually rather than in paper form for me to track and make sure that I'm following up with all of my appropriate contacts within my organization or outside, and to make sure that I'm staying on top of it. So figuring out some type of system for tracking, particularly if it's different, if you're coming from the office setting to remote. And the folks that worked at home, you probably figured this out 10 years ago, and I'm just slow on the uptick. That would be the biggest thing. And then making sure that I'm getting FaceTime with those people, again, with the fatigue, but I think it's super important. People want to see you. I think it's fine to have some meetings where you don't show yourself, but overall, I think you should be showing yourself more than not. People want to see what you're doing and how you're doing. But that would be my strategy, is just making sure that I'm tracking my tasks, my stakeholders, and I'm staying on top of things. And then as they resolve, I can clear those off of my queue.
Perfect, thank you. And that actually, we had a question come in, because I think that's a great point about, showing your face when you can, and I'm fully on board with that. But we got a question about how can you keep visibility when your company isn't using the face-to-face technology, if they're just using, phone conferences or Slack or Teams, where they're just messaging. Does anybody have any idea there? Allison or Rick? Yep.
I'll take it first and welcome my colleagues to jump in. This may come up again because in preparing for this, I know in preparing for this.
Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Sorry, you're a little scratchy. We're not hearing you. You're a little bit broken up when you're talking.
Hey, how is this?
A little better.
Okay, I'll keep talking and interrupt me if it. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting a lot. It's like background noise or something. It's hard to hear you.
Why don't I let someone else go and I'll check and see that my office is closed, but why don't someone else take it? Because I want you to get an answer. Maybe I'll type in my answer.
Okay. Thank you. Technology is always fun. Just when you get it figured out, right? Norledia, would you like to take that one?
Yes. So I don't know what GMs Rick was about to drop, because I was like, oh, this is a very interesting question. because we leverage the face-to-face technology. We use Zoom all the time, but we do leverage Slack, as well as like a lot of shared documents. So Google Docs, all the Google Docs, everything in the Google suite is our friend. And it's a great way for us to engage, collaborate, build things together as a team. And when we're leveraging those things, even if we're not actually on camera and we're just on the phone, a lot of times I take check-ins with my direct reports just on the phone to free them up, give them some space to not have to be on camera all the time. And those Google Docs are a great way for us to collaborate and build things together, a great way for me to check in to see how they're doing and progressing against the things that they're working on. And we leverage Slack a ton to just keep quick conversations going with one another. One of my hacks for me, I hate long emails. I just hate reading long emails, but I like to keep in touch with folks. And so if there's something that I feel like I can say really quickly to folks that doesn't necessarily need an actual phone call, I make voice notes. My team will tell you I make a ton of voice notes to just drop little things to them that I want to make sure that they're aware of, that I need to make sure there's like clarity on, but I don't necessarily want to write a super long email or super long Slack. So I record myself and shoot them over a voice note. And I think that that is a great way to just kind of keep the conversation going, and keep us in touch. Again, checking in with one another, making sure we're moving the work along, but that does not require us to actually be on screen or sitting in meetings, because meetings can also just be really draining as well.
Catherine, how is this?
You are still, it's still hard to hear.
Yeah, just nothing different on mine.
You have headphones or something, maybe?
I can put those in. I'll type in my answer. You can go on forward.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, technology is frustrating sometimes. So and Rick, I would love for you to type your answer in, and I'll share that with the group, certainly. One thing you might think about too, and I don't know the culture of your office, and this might be a great thing to talk about one of the small groups after this, but proposing maybe some Zoom meetings yourself, or talking to your manager to say, I am wondering if I could, take an initiative and start some Zoom meetings, for us to collaborate face to face, whether it's on an important project that you feel like that FaceTime would be valuable, or even if it's just, like I mentioned, a lunch group that allows people to, talk about how they're handling this and sharing ideas. So if it doesn't exist, this could be an opportunity for you to start that initiative within your organization and see, if it can take off, and maybe start small. Start with a meeting or two, not trying to force a huge change in the organization, but, starting to build some momentum in that direction to see if other people find value in it. Because I think, as all of our panelists have said, there's definitely a place for Slack. There's a place for, typing in quick notes and jumping on a conference call. But there's also a lot of value add to being able to see somebody face to face. And Norledia, I love your idea of the voice notes. I'm going to start doing that. I hate typing long emails myself. So that is such a great idea. I love it. We got a question. Someone would like to know what the voice notes program is that you use.
Yep, so it's right on the iPhone. If you look on your iPhone, I think it's called Voice Memos. Yes, Voice Memos. There's a little icon or app that is like preloaded already on your iPhone. Android friends, I don't know. They probably have a voice note app. out there. But yep, I just hit record, say what I need to say, try to make sure it's under 3 minutes. And you can actually just text them right over to folks, attach them to email. If you have Slack, you can also attach them to Slack messages.
Fantastic. Thank you. Rick?
Want to do a sound check? Want to do a sound check? I'm using these. How is this?
It's still, yeah.
Rick, why, could you try and call in? There should be a number associated
Okay.
as a last effort. I'm sorry.
That is a good idea. So I would love for either Alison or Norledia to take this one that just came in. So this alum is asking, how can I ensure that I am heard on conference calls? So I have a quiet voice and feel like I'm yelling, but still people are talking over me, apparently not hearing me. She doesn't think it's her phone. Any thoughts there? I think a lot of women out there struggle with being heard, not just in a conference call, but other situations. Would love your thoughts on that, either Alison or Norledia.
Go for it, Alison. Go for it.
Okay, I probably don't have a lot of suggestions. I work with mostly women, and I feel like everybody is decent about letting people talk. But one thing I would troubleshoot, I do have one of the women that I work with, and she struggles with this issue, I think. I would make sure it's not a phone issue by scheduling some one-on-one time with somebody else just to vet that to be 100% sure. And then if you have confidence that someone can hear you one-on-one, I don't know what size your conference calls are, or if they have an agenda attached to them, but maybe finding a way to either get your topic on the agenda so that you know you have a dedicated spot where people are forced to listen to you, for lack of a better way of putting it. And making sure too, depending on the content of the call, if you have specific input, again, maybe going to the host of the call to make sure that they reserve some time for you to be able to put in what you're trying to say. And I think those are the best strategies to at least get yourself either on the agenda or on the radar of the person hosting the call to make sure that they're providing you with an opportunity to state whatever you need to your team.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Totally agree with what Alison is saying. And I will say, if it's in the moment of a call, two things I would suggest doing. One is leverage the chat if you're using Zoom. I'm not as familiar with like meetings or Blue Jeans, but I know WebEx has a chat feature as well. So I would definitely leverage the chat. I also know that in Zoom, they have like a raise your hand feature. So you could leverage the raise your hand feature as well to try to get the attention of the meeting host so that your perspectives and insights can be shared aloud. But I would definitely leverage the chat for sure.
And I forgot about the little raise hand. I know in Teams, you can definitely do that and everybody participating can see. So even if the host doesn't notice that you have raised your hand, the people around you will, and generally someone will call it to the host's attention or the meeting organizer.
That is a fantastic suggestion. Both of you, great points. I love that, making sure that you're, have some sort of visibility by raising the hand when it's virtual, but then also, if you really are concerned about it, having a conversation with the host in advance, making sure that your agenda items are listed and that they understand the importance of them. So fantastic suggestions. Thank you.
I think we got, Rick, are you here?
I'm here. How does this voice sound?
Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. This is how to maintain visibility without being on Zoom, right?
Exactly.
So I think the issue. So maybe the lesson here is persistence. And I'm serious about that. So surely I lost some of the content, but as we think about how do you maintain that visibility, look what just happened here. And so I could have easily like, you know what, Norledia, they got Alison, they got this. I'll just walk away. But I was just really convinced to try a variety of different, things. I've left the university's system, which I think is the culprit. I'm now just on my regular data. But persistence, let's think about that. Persistence is probably an area that is something to think about. So now I'll be quiet, and you can tell me where we need to jump back in, and just prompt me as you need.
Actually, Rick, I've got a great question for you with your staff that are extended in a lot of different places. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you evaluate performance when your employees are virtual?
Absolutely. I focus on the results. And so because of the nature of our environment, even pre-COVID, we had people traveling. We had, I had, folks in Seattle working on special assignments and so forth. And so the thing that I focus on is not what did you do at 8 o'clock this morning, where were you at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but we agree upon what are the metrics and what are the results, what are the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and we focus on that. And in my experience, again, this is just unique to this operation. I'm not purporting that this will work everywhere. So please don't think that I'm thinking every company needs to do this. But in my sort of domain, what I've recognized also is that everybody works at a different pace. And so the point being is a variety of different work styles. So when we are remote, or however, or traveling, there are employees that I know that have capacity to produce more, can do more. And so their results are different, and their metrics are different, and they're fair and they're equitable. So how I measure people remote is no different from I was looking at them across from a table. And that is, what are you producing? What are the needs of the business? And we do tweak those, occasionally based on, how they accomplish them, because people who are working really smart and fast and producing, doing the great job versus good job, they're going to get more. But it really just has nothing at all to do with where they are. It's more of what are they producing.
Fantastic. Thank you. Those are very, very good points. Allison, I know you are a new manager. Any thoughts on that as well?
So for my job, it's very process driven, because what we're doing is we're verifying that the nurse is doing whatever that they've agreed to do with the consent order. So on my end, I have helped with our IT as we implemented a new system over the past year or two. We have our own case management system, and so I have a lot of back-end auditing tools that I can roll out on folks that maybe, like Rick was saying, someone that may not work as quickly, that I need to go back and just verify that things appear how they need to within our system. And then I try to go into our review system regularly to leave feedback for folks. I also provide feedback as needed. I'll schedule a 5-minute call to talk with somebody about issues they might be having or positive things that are happening. And I try to go look at everybody's goals and follow up throughout the year. Even now, remotely, our goals are kind of at the bottom of our radar to some extent, probably because, again, we're coming from the perspective where we've had this total shift in how we do our day-to-day. So connecting with people and making sure that their goals are on their radar, checking in on where they are and how I can support them in satisfying those, or if we need to move some of them out because they might be a stretch goal at this point. But for me, I've been doing reviews for folks for about 2 years. And so I'm going to have to do my first remote one coming up. So just thinking about stuff like that and how I can be available to support what they need to do to get their roles completed.
Yeah, I think that, open communication, maintaining those different lines of communication, and being willing to have, conversations with your direct reports, whether that's, noticing something they did really well or something that they may need to improve upon. Norledia, anything you would like to add to this?
I think Rick and Allison covered all the good stuff. All the good stuff.
Okay. So I will pass this next one to you that just came in. Any tips for being visible when most people are still in the office and you're one of the small number of people working from home? Any thoughts there?
That is a great question.
I'm happy to jump in.
Go. Yeah, jump in, Rick.
You know, we're singing the same. We're singing a little bit of the same tune. But I appreciate the question, but it's kind of gonna be similar. So if I'm hearing it correctly, you know, a lot of people are in the office. I'm not. And small people, you know, the small number are. How do we maintain visibility? I come back to some of the things about results. Are you working? What are you working on? If you're working on things that are hidden, if they're things that are not that visible, then you're not going to be visible. And so not being in the office is going to hurt. So I would be looking for opportunities to be engaged with what your company is working on that very strategic and important. It could be special projects. It could be, there's got to be something new related to all of this transition, even if it's a new product deliverable that's being discussed, new ideas. You can never, in general, again, whether you're in person or not, you can never be harmed by generating ideas, be constantly creating ideas, showing that you're thinking. If you just come to work, metaphorically or wherever, come could be to your dining room table. If you just come to work and do your job, then you're not, it doesn't matter where you are, you're likely not going to be visible. But if you come to work every day and you think and you contribute and you offer, and if you offer up in this very non-threatening way, just as just an idea, I want to let you know what I'm thinking. Revenue's probably going to be hurt in the fourth quarter. So here's some new product ideas, and here's an idea of how we might be able to increase dollars. I mean, we are, as you can call it nonprofit, or you can call, I don't care what you're working on. At the end of the day, it's about the money. And it's about the money in every single industry. You could be raising money for you could work at the American Red Cross. You got to have money. And so if you want to really start contributing ideas and thoughts of how you improve the bottom line of any business, it's not going to matter that you're the only one that's not in the office, because you will start to be noticed for your ideas, for your brain power, for your thinking. Let that rule the day rather than your physical presence. I do not professionally think there's anything physically magical about you being in the office equating to you doing a great job. And so, but you've got to think about there are others there who may politically be just putting face time and might be socializing. And I'm sorry about that. I don't like that. I think it's, somewhat despicable, actually, that might actually cause someone to be more visible because they just are there handing somebody a cup of coffee. The reality is how you overcome that, or how you really make sure you are the most visible employee in an organization, even if you're in Kansas and the people are all in New York, and that is you're contributing ideas that better that business. You just cannot substitute that no matter where you are. Don't ever let go of that. Ideas, ideas, ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for an amen, Norledia.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm over here like, yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you covered that one. I think that was a fantastic answer. Thank you. And this one, I can, really whoever would like to take this one, but we had a question about tips for starting a position completely remotely. So has anybody brought on a new employee recently and onboarded, or any thoughts on that?
I need to hear this answer because I need to hire someone. So that was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people in this boat right now. So
Rick, I'll get it started. I don't know that I have anything magical. we hired a senior director from MIT, what we would call in Boston across the river. He started April 1st. He's never been in the office. We were recruiting in February thinking that he would be in the office. I don't know if I have anything dramatic to say. I think if you're asking about on the recruitment side, then I'd say you just have to make sure everything is absolutely as clearly communicated. I would focus a lot on things in writing as opposed to words because the person's new. I'm getting used to it. The executive assistant that works alongside me, Janet Nadeau, she was replacing a retired person. She started February 10th. She had about 3 weeks on the job before she went, and she's never been remote. And what I have found working with Janet is that I have got to actually put a lot of things in writing because she and I have not had a chance to really have that in-person verbal look and so forth. And so I have to put a little bit more work into that. And now if you're asking from the standpoint of you being that person and you're starting remote, hadn't planned on it, I think, again, some of the things we talked about still prevail is that just make sure you are asked the difference between a good and great job, make sure, you're continuing to think and things of that nature. I can elaborate based on the angle of the question, but that's just something out there to get started.
Yeah, no, Rick, I agree with you. I think the question is angled more towards if you are starting a position remotely. Okay. In my mind, I think it still is, akin to a lot of the things we've been talking about. But I would say, try as much as you can to have a very clear plan with your supervisor as to what your role entails, what your goals are in the first 30, 60, 90 days. I would be very clear about who the stakeholders are that you should be engaging with and setting up meetings with those people, ideally over Zoom or Google Meet or whatever the company is using, so you can get some face time and become more than a piece of paper. Okay. Rick, do you mind turning your microphone off? Is that?
It's off.
Okay. Weird.
It's off.
Okay, there we go. I don't know what's going on. Gotta love technology. So making sure that you can get some face time, that you're not just this resume that of a person that they hired. I think that would be my biggest piece of advice. Just be very clear about what it is that you're supposed to be accomplishing, who the people are you're supposed to be working with, building those relationships, and just making sure that you are, engaged with different people within the organization. Anything else?
Catherine, can I add something?
Yeah.
So I have been in this position where I've been the person that was virtually onboarding. And I think this is a great opportunity for you to manage up to your manager. And what I mean by that is take a look at the onboarding plan that you're provided, all the things that Catherine said. Those things should actually be in your onboarding plan. But if they're not, you can define those things for yourself and have a conversation with your manager to align on those things. And I would examine that onboarding plan and look for the holes. And what I mean by that is look for the additional things that you think you want to get out of your first 30, 60, 90 days that you can then add to that plan to enhance your onboarding experience. And again, manage up. So share up these things to your manager, make sure you're aligned. I think this is a great way for you to come in hot as you're onboarding in a virtual space, because it then sets this, it sets the tone for your working relationship, but it actually also might just set up what a process will look like for onboarding folks in the future, because we don't know how long we're going to be in this virtual space. And so now you're in a place where you're setting this tone and like a process that could be an org-wide or company-wide process as people are onboarding virtually.
Thank you so much. Anybody else have, Rick, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, it's been a really good discussion. I know we have a few minutes left, but we have answered all of the questions that have come into the general Q&A and the ones that were sent in before. So if anybody is mulling over something and wants to type anything else in, you're more than welcome to. And then I believe in the meantime, Jack can kind of jump in and give you some information about the small groups and some resources through the GAA.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much to all the panelists and Catherine for moderating. I'm trying to find my screen to share our normal resources, but I just want to remind you there's an opportunity for GAA members to network with our panelists. Still a lot of space left if people want to do that. I've dropped the link a couple of times in the chat. You can just register there. We're going to get started and probably give people a little bit of a bathroom break, probably around 12:05. It will be in a separate Zoom call. But just as a reminder about some of our GAA resources, we have the Tar Heel Advising Network, which is our alumni to alumni based platform that is open to all alumni right now to utilize. Really great resource to find people in your field, find people who might be willing to help on a resume or do an informational interview. We also have virtual coffee chats such as this. We have a nice recording webinar library you can check out that is open to all alumni right now as well. And we will be doing more of these coffee chats in the near future. And then we have a number of great career resource articles that Catherine has written along with a couple alumni. And for GAA members, we offer career coaching sessions with Catherine. She can do anything from career therapy to resume review to cover letters to interview tips, anything you really need help with. And you can find more information about that on our website or emailing alumnicareers@unc.edu. But with that, just want to again say thank you all so much again for being here. And we'll see those of you that are doing the networking session in just a few minutes.
Great, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun, a great conversation, and thank you to the panelists for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. I'll jump on. I'm gonna use my own data plan, so maybe I'll be able to see you all again in the next one. All right, talk soon. Bye bye.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye.